If life is suffering, why live at all? Buddhism's practical answer. Redefining the problem. Suffering isn't a life sentence. If you've ever felt exhausted and quietly asked yourself, if life is this hard, what's the point of it all? You are not alone. This question doesn't come from weakness. It comes from honesty. It's the voice of a soul that has finally stopped pretending everything is fine. A soul that has become brave enough to search for something real. The first thing we need to gently untangle is a big misunderstanding. Many people hear that Buddhism teaches life is suffering, and they think it means life is only pain, that life is all bad, that perhaps we should be sad and hopeless all the time. But this is not what the Buddha meant at all. Think of the Buddha not as a pessimistic philosopher, but as a kind, compassionate doctor. When a doctor says, "You have a fever," their goal is never to make you feel worse. Their goal is to help you see what's really happening, so you can start to heal. The Buddha's teaching is exactly like this. A careful, honest diagnosis, not a life sentence. In the Buddha's language, the word is dukkha. It means much more than just physical pain. Dukkha points to 3 layers of discomfort that quietly follow us through life. The first is the most visible. The pain of sickness, the pain of loss, the pain of failure. These are things we can all easily recognize. The second layer is more subtle. The pain of change. Think about the happiest moments of your life. Maybe a beautiful vacation, the excitement of a new relationship, the joy of reaching a long-awaited goal. Why don't those feelings last? The happiness of buying a new phone fades. The passion in a relationship evolves. The fact that all good things must eventually change. That is also a kind of pain. The happiness was real, but our habit of clinging to it, our silent wish that it could stay forever, quietly creates a background of unease, like a low, steady hum of anxiety that never fully goes away. And then, there is the deepest layer, the quiet dissatisfaction that lingers, even when everything seems okay. You might have a stable job, a loving family, good health, and still feel that something is missing, as if life is almost right, but not quite. It's like sitting on a chair that's just a little uneven. It's not broken. You won't fall, but you can never fully relax. That subtle, restless wobble, that is the deepest meaning of dukkha. So when the Buddha said, "Life is suffering," he wasn't criticizing life, and he wasn't spreading sadness. He was simply describing life as it really is. A life that naturally wobbles because everything is always changing. But this is where many people misunderstand. They hear this truth and think, then maybe I should just give up. If life is always wobbling, what's the point of trying? This is the turning point where Buddhism shines. Buddhism is not about giving up. It is the opposite. It's about living with courage and wisdom in the middle of the wobble. Let's imagine a sailor. A hopeless sailor sees a storm coming and says, "There's nothing I can do." He lets go of the wheel, gives up, and allows the storm to destroy his boat. This is passive surrender. But a wise sailor, he also sees the storm coming. His first step is simple but powerful. He accepts the truth. There is a storm. He doesn't waste his energy getting angry at the sky. He doesn't fall into despair. Because he accepts the storm, he can now act. He adjusts his sails. He holds the wheel with steady hands. And he uses his understanding to navigate through the storm rather than be broken by it. Accepting that life has a natural wobble. This is the act of the wise sailor. It is not weakness. It is strength. It is the quiet courage to look at life honestly, not to drown in it, but to learn how to sail through it. It is about breathing deeply and finally choosing to stop fighting reality and instead learning to move with it, skillfully, gently, bravely. Because only when we stop turning away from the truth can we begin to see the map clearly and slowly find our way. Finding the root cause. Why do we suffer? So, if we can gently accept that life has this natural wobble, this quiet undercurrent of dissatisfaction, the next question naturally arises. Why? Where does this wobble come from? Is life simply designed this way? Is it just bad luck? Or is there something deeper happening? This is where the Buddha's teaching becomes quietly revolutionary and incredibly empowering. He pointed us away from blaming the outside world. The root cause of our suffering is not hidden in our boss, our partner, our government, or in some cruel fate. The root is much closer. It lives inside our own minds. The Buddha said that deep within all of us is a powerful thirst. In his language, the word is tanha, craving, clinging, a restless hunger for life to be different than it is. We crave pleasant experiences. We desperately avoid unpleasant ones. And when things are finally good, we cling to them, begging them to never change. But this thirst is like drinking salt water. We take big gulps, believing this time we will finally be satisfied, only to find ourselves even thirstier. We chase after money, status, praise, and relationships thinking, if I can just have this, I will finally be happy. And sometimes we do get what we want. For a brief moment, it feels like the thirst is gone. But soon enough, it quietly returns, stronger, louder, more demanding. This endless cycle of craving and temporary relief is what keeps us restless. But how exactly does this craving take hold of us? It works through something very specific. We cling to a false idea of who we are. Imagine you spend your whole life building a beautiful sandcastle right by the sea. This sandcastle is what you call me. It's your body, your success, your failures, your beliefs, your reputation, your memories. Deep down, you know the ocean is always there, and the waves will one day come. You know this sandcastle is temporary, but you live as if it's a solid stone fortress that must be protected at all costs. This is where the real suffering begins. When someone walks by and casually says, "Your castle is a little small," it hurts, as if they've attacked you personally. When a small wave comes and washes away a corner, you panic. That's the fear of aging, the shock of losing something you love. And all the while, you carry this quiet, constant fear of the big wave, the wave of sickness, separation, or death that you know will eventually come. The waves themselves are not the problem. The ocean simply does what oceans do. The pain comes from our hopeless clinging to the sandcastle, from the way we beg it to last forever, when it was always meant to return to the sea. When our precious sandcastle is threatened, 3 toxic fires light up inside us. The first is greed, the craving to build taller walls, to make the castle bigger, to gather more and more so we can feel safer. The second is anger, the frustration and fury we feel toward the waves, toward other people, toward anything that dares to touch what we are trying to protect. And the third is delusion, the deep confusion, the stubborn refusal to accept the simple truth that the sandcastle was never meant to last. These three fires, greed, anger, and delusion, are not random moods that just come and go. They are the natural result of clinging to something fragile. They are the emotional smoke that rises from the fire of attachment. The problem isn't the ocean. The problem is our attachment to the sandcastle. The promise of an exit. What is nibbana? So, if the problem is our clinging to the sandcastle, and the symptoms are these three toxic fires, greed, anger, and delusion, constantly burning inside us, it can all start to feel a little heavy. It's an honest diagnosis, but it's not an easy one to carry. And this is exactly where the Buddha offered the most beautiful and life-changing promise. This is the turning point. After carefully describing the problem and its cause, he shared the most essential truth. There is an end to this. The fires do not have to burn forever. Freedom is possible. This is the deepest hope that Buddhism offers. It does not simply point out what's wrong. It gently assures us that there is a path out of suffering. The Buddha didn't just leave us with the discomfort of seeing the fire. He showed us how to put it out. So, what is this freedom? What is this peaceful state? The word is nibbana, or nirvana, as it is often known. But just like the word suffering, the word nirvana is often misunderstood. Many people imagine nirvana as a kind of faraway heaven, a magical place we might reach after death. But that's not what the Buddha was pointing to. The word nibbana simply means to extinguish, like blowing out the flame of a candle. So what is being blown out? It is the three fires: greed, anger, and delusion. Imagine your mind as a room. And for most of your life, the fires of craving, frustration, and confusion have been burning inside this room. The heat is exhausting. The smoke is blinding. You are constantly running in circles, trying to manage the flames, putting out small fires while new ones keep appearing. You live in this constant state of tension, without even realizing how tired you've become. Nibbana is what happens when the fires go out. What's left is not a cold, empty space. What's left is the room itself, finally revealed. It's peaceful, it's cool, it's spacious, and it's clear. For the first time, you can really see. The noise has settled. The smoke has cleared. The exhausting heat has vanished. This is not something mysterious or far away. This is the natural, quiet state of the mind when it is no longer on fire. And here is something truly important. Nibbana is not something you have to wait for after you die. It is a real, living possibility, right here, right now. Every time you feel anger rising, and you choose not to act on it, you are gently touching the coolness of Nibbana. Every time you notice a craving and let it pass without chasing it, you are tasting a moment of freedom. These small, precious moments, they are not far from the final peace the Buddha spoke of. This is the true reward we've been searching for all along. It's not a place. It's not a prize. It's the simple, profound peace of no longer being burned by our own minds. It's the quiet ending of an inner war we have been fighting for so long. And the fact that this is possible, that freedom can begin right here, in this very life, is the reason to begin the journey. It is the reason to keep walking. It is the reason to truly live. The practical map. How do we live? Knowing that there's an exit, a place of deep peace where the fires can go out, is a beautiful promise. It gives us hope. But the next question naturally arises. That's wonderful, but how do I actually get there? Is there a path? Can I walk it? The answer is yes. The Buddha didn't just point to a peaceful destination and leave us to figure it out on our own. He offered a practical step-by-step map to help us walk toward that freedom. This path is not about blind faith. It's not about complicated rituals. It's a clear, gentle training for the mind. You can think of it as a complete workout program, a gym for the heart and mind. This program is called the Eightfold Path. We don't need to get lost in all 8 steps right now. For now, it's helpful to understand it as a training with 3 simple parts. The first part is about living ethically. This is the solid ground we need to stand on. It's beautifully simple. We do our best not to cause harm with our words or our actions. When we lie, when we steal, when we speak with anger, we stir up chaos inside ourselves and in the people around us. And it's very hard to find peace when we are constantly creating pain. So the first step is to gently clean up our way of living, so that our mind can begin to settle, like muddy water becoming clear. The second part is training the mind. This is the core workout. Just as we train our muscles at the gym, we need to gently train our attention. Our minds are naturally restless. They run to the past, to the future, to worries, to daydreams, without stopping. This training is about learning to bring our attention back, softly, to the present moment. One of the simplest and most powerful tools is the breath. Just feeling the natural rhythm of one breath, in and out, is like lifting a small weight for the mind. Over time, this builds the quiet strength of focus and calm. The third part is developing wisdom. This isn't about collecting ideas or memorizing philosophies. It's about learning to see the nature of your own mind. It's about gently watching your thoughts and emotions arise without getting swept away by them. For example, when anger shows up, instead of becoming the anger, you begin to notice, anger has appeared. It feels hot. It tightens my chest. The moment you can observe the anger, instead of being consumed by it, you are already a little freer. This is wisdom in action, the ability to see clearly without being trapped. But as soon as you begin this training, you will quickly meet 5 familiar obstacles. The Buddha called them the 5 hindrances, but you can think of them as 5 uninvited guests that naturally show up when we try to calm the mind. The first is sensual desire, the craving for pleasant experiences and the resistance to discomfort. The second is ill will, irritation, resentment, and the tendency to push away what we don't like. The third is sloth and torpor, the heaviness of body and mind, making us dull, sleepy, or unmotivated. The fourth is restlessness and worry, the agitated mind that jumps around, worrying about the future or regretting the past. The fifth is doubt, the deep, paralyzing doubt that makes us question ourselves and the path. When these guests appear, you don't need to fight them or push them away. The real training is much gentler. Simply notice their presence. You can quietly recognize, desire has arrived in my mind. Restlessness is here now. Doubt is present at this moment. You don't need to judge them. You don't need to argue with them. You simply see them clearly. And as you stop feeding them with your energy and frustration, they slowly begin to lose their power. With time, they soften, and they often fade on their own. This is where we learn a quiet balance, the rhythm between gentle effort and peaceful letting go. The effort is the steady, honest work of noticing these 5 guests when they visit. The letting go is the kindness you offer yourself when you're not perfect, when the mind still gets distracted, when these guests stay longer than you would like. You walk the path with patience, with steady determination, and with a soft, understanding heart. This rhythm, the gentle discipline and the compassionate release, is the heart of the practice. It's not about fighting. It's about learning to see, learning to stay, and learning to soften. And in this softening, real freedom begins to grow. The result of the journey, a life worth living. So what really happens when you start walking this path? What is the true result of training your mind and learning to gently work with the hindrances that show up? You don't become a perfect, emotionless robot. That's a common misunderstanding. In fact, you become more fully human. The result is not that you stop feeling. The result is that you are no longer controlled by your feelings. You move from being a victim of life to becoming the artist of your life. An artist doesn't get to choose all of their materials. Sometimes life hands you dark, difficult colors: pain, loss, hardship. A victim would resist those colors, complain about them, try to throw them away. But an artist learns to work with every color, even the darkest ones, to create something beautiful and meaningful. This is what it means to live wisely, to work with whatever life gives you, and to quietly shape it into peace and understanding. And this brings us to one of the deepest and most difficult questions. How does this path help someone who is facing extreme pain? The loss of a child, a terminal illness, a deep betrayal. Buddhism doesn't offer a magic pill that makes this pain disappear. It would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. The pain of great loss is real. It deserves to be seen. It deserves to be felt. What this path offers is something more honest and more powerful. It gives you the tools to be with the pain without being destroyed by it. Imagine your grief is like a crying baby. A panicked person might try to ignore the baby, or scream at it to stop, or run away from it. This only makes things worse. But a wise and compassionate person does something different. They simply pick up the crying baby, hold it gently, and sit with it. They don't need the crying to stop immediately. They just offer their calm, steady presence. This is what you learn to do with your own pain. You don't push it away, you don't feed it, you don't fight it. You simply hold it. You offer it your mindful, compassionate attention, like holding a crying child in your arms, without judgment, without panic. And in that gentle space of acceptance, something quietly changes. The pain may not vanish, but it no longer overwhelms you. It no longer defines you. It becomes something you can carry. You discover that you are bigger than your pain. When you lose someone you love, you may still feel sadness, but you also learn to hold that sadness with warmth. You remember the good moments. You learn the deep lesson of impermanence. You can even transform the pain into a powerful reminder to live more fully, to love more deeply, to continue walking with greater compassion, in their honor. So let's return to our first question. If life has this built-in wobble, this dukkha, why live? The answer is not a single destination. The answer is the journey itself. You live to learn, to understand your own mind, to learn how to stop causing suffering for yourself and for others. You live to transform, to take the raw materials of your life, both joy and sorrow, and turn them into wisdom and compassion. You live to be free, to free yourself from the grip of your old habits, from the prison of needing life to always go your way. You live to love, to offer peace, not just to yourself, but to everyone you meet. This is not a passive path. It is not a life of waiting and wishing. It is a path that requires courage, steady effort, and a deep, growing love for life in all its shapes and colors. It is the quiet, beautiful act of taking responsibility for the peace you bring into the world. And this journey doesn't begin tomorrow. It doesn't begin when you're less busy. It begins right now, in this very moment, with your very next breath.